Greetings, dear friends. Have you ever noticed that there are too many people around who feel tired? It seems as if everyone in today's world is lacking energy, and it's a very meaningful feeling indeed. About 20% of the population suffers from chronic fatigue, and those numbers are only increasing over time. Scientists are sounding the alarm, saying that compared to our ancestors, we are like living zombies, all thanks to our modern, sometimes quite difficult lifestyles. The whole thing makes it seem that even with enough sleep and minimal stress, we can still feel tired, especially in the morning. In this video, I will share with you the main causes of chronic fatigue and how you can deal with this nuisance. It is important to remember that my tips are just recommendations provided on the YouTube platform and are not a substitute for consulting a professional. If you've been experiencing constant fatigue for a long time, and no advice from the internet brings relief, I strongly recommend seeing a doctor. Your health is a priority, and only a professional can offer an individualized and accurate approach to your situation. Together we will figure out how to bring vigor and energy back into your life. Don't forget to take care of yourself. Indeed, friends, it is worth recognizing that people of the past were not without the problem of chronic fatigue, but the nature of this fatigue was quite different. Back then, physical labor absorbed all our energies, and the Industrial Revolution switched us to mental work. The concept of fatigue underwent a change from physical exhaustion of the body to fatigue of the mind. In the past, it was clear why fatigue appeared. For example, an ancient worker could simply stop working to regain his strength, while 19th-century intellectuals could put aside their paperwork. In modern times, however, the situation has become more complicated. Modern people often find it difficult to determine how to rest properly. Our society has changed dramatically over the past 50 years, and the causes of fatigue are now less obvious. Whereas in the past a temporary cessation of work was sufficient for recovery, today many of us find it difficult to find effective methods of rest in a world where the concept of work and rest are merging together. Indeed, modern society actively asserts that watching TV series or playing games on the computer is a great way to relax. Therefore, an accountant who spends the whole week dealing with numbers and papers, on the weekend seeks to relieve stress by visiting movie theaters. However, even a novelty detective can add to his stress, and schoolchildren, tired of cramming after 6 lessons, choose games in which, as it turns out, you also need to think a lot. But, as you yourself know, often a whole day spent on the couch does not relieve fatigue. On the contrary, it makes you feel even more tired. To this can be added unpleasant feelings of guilt, when the thought appears, I am a useless person, I have done nothing useful. Indeed, our main problem is that we often confuse an emotional outburst with true rest. It seems that if an activity is enjoyable, then we are resting. We spend hours in front of the TV, sitting on social media and chatting on the phone, thinking it is relaxation. To combat modern-day fatigue, it's important to understand what has changed recently. Before the electrification of the country, we would fall asleep as darkness fell and sleep a full hour and a half more. The sunset prepared us for sleep by producing melatonin, and the body relaxed. Однако сьогодні 70% людей засыпают со смартфоном в рук, a синich svet display signalizaruет нашему организму, cto sekas denine vrema spat. As a result, we are often deprived of the deep sleep phase, which is responsible for recovery. So, the first conclusion is to sleep more. This is a fundamental change that will help you fight modern-day fatigue more effectively. If you're already getting enough sleep, but lying on your crib doesn't give you relief, the first step to staying awake may be, oddly enough, physical activity. Paradoxically for the modern man, exercise is a great help in the fight against fatigue. Studies show that if you exercise regularly several times a week, you will start to feel a burst of energy after about 6 weeks. In our time, only 20% of people worked out at a desk, but now that number has passed 70%. After working like this, we come home and sit down again. It turns out that most of us spend too much time sitting, which scientists show can cause more problems than smoking, for example. So the second conclusion is to get moving. Don't get hung up on just the gym. If you're not a fan of heavy weights, don't torture yourself. Find an activity that you enjoy. It can be running, soccer, yoga, wrestling, Pilates, and so on. If you start doing something you don't enjoy, you probably won't last long. Think about how you would like to move and try different activities until you find one that you enjoy. By the way, scientists have also found that regular physical activity not only invigorates you, but also improves the quality of your sleep. A kak mizanium, horosij sun, vosnij aspect zidorova, v tom sisal I horosego sexa. So what do you do if no physical activity is enjoyable? It doesn't feel good to run or twirl a hula hoop, we get it, it happens. In such a case, it seems that fatigue can be relieved by coffee. Caffeine is indeed invigorating, and according to numerous studies, it may even be healthy. However, this beverage can also increase drowsiness. People who do not consume caffeine report less fatigue in the morning. So instead of caffeine, it is better to make sure that you drink enough water. It's also important to mention the effects of alcohol. Studies have shown that some alcohol can help you fall asleep faster, but the quality of your sleep will decrease. You will wake up more often and spend less time in the deep phase of sleep. Incidentally, fresh research by scientists emphasizes that any amount of alcohol has a negative impact on health, and previous ideas about a safe dose or the healthfulness of red wine, for example, are a thing of the past. Fatigue can be inextricably linked to your emotional state, and the impact of anxiety on wakefulness is particularly pronounced. Fatigue is one of the key symptoms of anxiety disorder. Not to be forgotten, along the way with anxiety goes hand in hand with our old acquaintance depression. This stuff can cause physical and emotional fatigue. In such cases, neither advice from friends nor parental attempts like, pull yourself together, wimp, will not only not help, but can only make the situation worse. If you suspect depression or an anxiety disorder, I strongly recommend seeing a psychiatrist. It is important to see a psychiatrist, not a psychologist or psychotherapist, because psychiatrists are authorized to prescribe medication. Do not be afraid to be on some kind of registration, no one will consider you a psycho. These myths and stereotypes have long been outdated and do not reflect reality. Another common myth associated with fatigue concerns vitamins. Many of us believe that just drinking a multivitamin is enough and it will help. However, this is most likely not the case. Most people need vitamins and other supplements in much smaller amounts than they realize. After all, we get enough nutrients from a balanced diet. The key is to have variety in your diet, including vegetables, fruits and grains. In this case, you will not need any supplements. Also, avoid excessive use of vitamins and supplements, as they can cause harm if taken for too long and in excessive amounts. It is better to save your money by not spending it on supplements and vitamins, but rather direct it towards quality products. In rare cases, taking vitamins can actually be beneficial, but before doing so, it is worth consulting a doctor and taking tests to find out for sure if you have a deficiency of any vitamins or minerals. Let's get back to the issue of rest, which many of us seem to have forgotten how to spend meaningfully. At the computer, in front of the TV or with the phone, this is the usual scenario of our leisure time, but this is not exactly what we need for a full recovery. Office workers in particular should take the time to walk in parks. It is contact with nature that can revitalize, and an evening spent with a TV series may well be a great addition to an active vacation. This doesn't mean a complete rejection of social media, movies, and other entertainment after all. It's part of our lives and it's impossible to give it up. However, I urge you to realize that this is not the ideal kind of recreation. All of this entertainment, like recreation itself, requires an expenditure of energy. Try to implement the habit of going for a walk more often, even if alone. I'm sure you'll feel much better after a while. Sometimes it pays to temporarily give up the endless flow of information, at least for a while. It is because of information overload that we often feel exhausted, without even realizing what exactly is behind that fatigue. I realize that giving up gadgets is hard, they get us hooked on a mild dopamine high, but when fatigue builds up, temporarily giving up information consumption may be the only salvation. You're probably wondering how you can spend that time. Just putting away the phones and sitting in complete silence seems unbearably boring, I agree. So let's not give up the phones, just change the activity. Not doing doesn't mean an activity, just a change to a different activity. Relaxation can take many forms: a walk, yoga, a massage, a cup of tea, reading a book, or, at the very least, snuggling up with a blanket. The choice of your activities is up to you. The main thing is to find something that really brings satisfaction and peace. So, let's summarize all of the above. First things first, pay attention to the quality and duration of your sleep. Second, incorporate physical activity into your life. It is important that it is enjoyable so that you don't neglect it. Third, refrain from excessive consumption of coffee and alcohol, preferring water. Fourth, check your emotional state. This is best done with the support of a professional. Fifth, eat a varied diet. If there is a need for vitamins, first take tests. Sixth, walk in nature, in parks, alone or with loved ones. Seventh, give yourself informational breaks. Eighth, find a fascinating activity. I hope these recommendations will be useful for you. Subscribe to the channel, put likes, share comments to be aware of new and interesting videos that will be released on the channel in the future.